Today's lesson is A Man of Ups and Downs, The Wildlife of Nicolas Cage. Hi, everybody. My name's Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue talking about the life and times of Nicolas Cage. Now, remember last time we talked about the fact that he's got many talents. He can produce, direct, and act, but he also has an extravagant personality. He's made some rather unusual purchases in the past. Let's see, what did he buy? He bought a dinosaur skull. And a haunted mansion,
yep.
And then a German castle.
11th century German castle.
Yeah, really old castle there. And then eventually he got in trouble for owing taxes, and the IRS, I'm assuming, went after him wanting those back taxes. So I guess his accountant had made a mistake and overlooked some of his past tax bills, and now he's got to figure out a way to pay that debt off so that he can start making money again and buying weird things.
Absolutely, yes. If you go bankrupt, that means you basically run out of money. You can get some financial protection in certain countries by declaring bankruptcy. That would be the noun form of it. And it will allow you to sort of pay off your debts a little more slowly, stop people from maybe throwing you in jail because of the money you owe them. But it's basically the last chance you have to save yourself from possible jail time because of some serious financial problems from the past that have led you to basically have no money when you need to pay back a lot of people. So often when people go bankrupt, they'll sell off assets, a word we saw in yesterday's article, and they might end up working really, really hard in any way possible to make as much money as possible as quickly as possible. And that's what Nicolas Cage did. So let's get into our article and see how Nick Cage got himself out of this financial hole.
To avoid going bankrupt, Cage began starring in a string of low-quality action movies. These films helped fix his financial problems, but they also added to his fame as a source of funny internet memes. And while Cage has, in fact, given some pretty wild performances in his career, it's easy to understand why the actor, who won an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, has expressed some frustration at memes that take his most extreme scenes out of context.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到名词 frustration， 它的意思是挫败或是挫折。例如 The constant construction delays have been a big source of frustration for us. 施工不断延迟对我们而言是挫折感的一大来源。又或者说 Catherine experienced a lot of frustration trying to figure out the math problem. Catherine 试着解开那个数学问题时经历许多挫折。
Okay, so remember he owes the IRS lots of money in back taxes, so he did not want to go bankrupt to lose all his money and get legal protection. To avoid going bankrupt, he began starring in a string of low-quality action movies. So a string of just means a series of those movies. He was just looking for work, and I suppose at the time he had already gotten pretty old and he was no longer as popular as he used to be, so he started taking on whichever roles he could to make some quick bucks to pay off his debts. And these were low-quality action movies. I may have seen some of them. I think there was one called Snake Eyes, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, he's done movies much more low quality than that one.
Yeah, that one I guess was okay, but there are many of them that he just kind of took just to get the paycheck. And these films helped fix his financial problems, but they also added to his fame as a source of funny internet memes. So because he took on these roles in those low-quality films, people generated these memes based on Nicolas Cage, and they probably were not very flattering.
Yes, absolutely. And this kind of created a bit of a problem for Nicolas Cage, and he's reacted to it a few times. As we learn, it says, and while Cage has, in fact, given some pretty wild performances in his career, it's easy to understand why the actor, who won an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, has expressed some frustration at memes that take his most extreme scenes out of context. So basically, they take take shots from some of his performances in maybe some of these low-quality, low-budget movies, but also from some of his other movies. Some of the scenes where he's being his most dramatic and acting in his most sort of crazy, unhinged kind of way, and then they put a funny caption on that picture from the film, and that gets spread around, and so people see Nicolas Cage as a sort of acting wild man who's always running to the extremes of emotions. So this, has happened a little bit in some of his performances, but when people think of him as only acting in that way, he feels some frustration. And frustration is this feeling of not quite being understood, not being successful in attempting something. In his case, he's trying to be taken as a serious actor, trying to be a serious actor, but people just think of him as that wild man from some internet meme. I'm thinking there's a movie called Wicker Man, and there's a part where he gets attacked by bees. And someone took a little 3-second clip of him screaming while being covered in bees, and it is pretty wild, but it's at the end of this sort of horror movie. So it's actually a very powerful scene from the film if you watch the whole film, but if you take it out of context or out of the environment or out of the situation it should be presented in, if you just sort of take it out of that and look at it on its own without knowing what happened before or what happened after or what is going on, then it can seem kind of crazy.
Yep, he's expressed frustration, which is when you just feel exasperated. You really want to get something, but you can't get it. And to be frustrated just means to feel that way. And yes, he probably wants to be taken seriously as an actor, but instead people are making fun of him with those memes. I think I do remember that meme with him being covered with bees being passed around on social media. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson. Let's move on now to the second part.
Of course, acting isn't the only thing that's made Cage such a lasting figure in pop culture. He's a gifted producer and director as well. His works as the former include such gems as Shadow of the Vampire, The Dresden Files, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, in which Cage also played a fictional version of himself. Meanwhile, his lone directing effort, Sunny, was nominated for the Grand Special Prize at the Deauville American Film Festival in France.
第二部分我们介绍形容词 unbearable， 它指的是无法忍受的或是难以承受的。例如 Emma didn't enjoy skiing because she found the cold unbearable. Emma 不喜欢滑雪，因为她觉得寒冷让人难以忍受。接下来我们看到形容词 massive， 它的意思是巨大的、庞大的或是非常严重的。举例来说 Massive amounts of logging has devastated that mountain. 大量砍伐林木对那座山造成巨大的破坏。又或者说 The storm resulted in massive flooding and mudslides. 那场暴风雨造成了非常严重的洪水和土石流。下一个我们介绍单字 fictional， 这个形容词的意思是虚构的或是想象的。例如 The author created many popular fictional characters. 该作者创造出许多受欢迎的虚构角色。又或者说This story is about a fictional kingdom where animals can speak. 这个故事是关于一个虚构的王国，那里的动物会说话。接着看到单字 nominate， 它是动词，意思是提名、推荐或是任命。例如 Albert was nominated for a bravery award for saving someone from drowning. Albert 因救起溺水者而获提名一个英勇奖项。或是 Stephen was nominated for Employee of the Month again. Steven 再次被提名为当月最佳员工。
Okay, it's time for us to discuss the second part of our lesson for today. Remember, Nicolas Cage is mostly known for being an actor, but of course, acting isn't the only thing that's made Cage such a lasting figure in pop culture. So, of course, he's famous because he's an actor, and that has indeed made him famous, but he's done other things that have contributed to his being a lasting figure in pop culture. So he's not only known as an actor, he's known for other things as well.
That's right. He's a gifted producer and director as well. So some of those movies he's been in, maybe some of the more low-budget ones that he's done more recently, he's actually been working behind the camera as well, not just in front of the camera as an actor and a performer, but he's also done some production and direction as well. That's why he can list producer and director on his Hollywood resume along with actor. His work as the former includes such gems as Shadow of the Vampire, The Dresden Files, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, in which Cage also played a fictional version of himself. Wow, very interesting movies listed there. Can't say I've seen any of them, but we know from the sentence that in all of these 3 movies listed, he was a producer of these films. We know that because it says his works as the former include such gems as. So in the previous sentence, we saw he's a gifted producer and director. The former refers to the first in that list of 2. The latter, L-A-T-T-E-R, would be the second one if it said his works as the latter. Something that's unbearable. Basically, you can't live with it. It's something that you can't go on accepting. You can't go on being okay with. You have to change something if it's unbearable because you can't go on anymore. It could be a terrible relationship that you're in. If you hate your job and going to work tomorrow feels like the worst thing in the world, then your job has become unbearable to you and you should probably quit and make a change. But with Nicolas Cage's life, it's a really tough life, Roger, because he has massive talent and the weight of it is unbearable. It's just so hard being as talented as Nicolas Cage. I think the title's probably a bit of a joke.
Probably indeed. It's probably ironic, but
Yes.
Again, unbearable means it's something you just can't stand, like unbearable pain you might be feeling from an accident that you had, so please drive carefully. And massive, of course, just means huge, a large amount of something. And he played a fictional version of himself. If something's fictional, it's made up. It's not real, it's not true, and it's a version of himself. A version is just a different form of something. We can talk about different versions of software. You'll get these notices on your phone all the time. There's a new version of this app. Would you like to download it now? And in this particular case, it's a different version of himself. It's Nicolas Cage, but in a different form.
Oh, okay. Sort of like a slightly exaggerated version of Nicolas Cage, an exaggerated version of his personality. Let's move on. It says, meanwhile, his lone directing effort. So he's only directed one film. That's why it's described as his lone directing effort. Lone meaning only one. His lone directing effort, Sunny, was nominated for the Grand Special Prize at the Deauville American Film Festival in France. Wow, so it's almost won a prize and certainly been up for a prize or nominated. If something is nominated, basically a group of people put that one forward. They recommend that one as a possible award winner. When we have that list of people, actors, movies that could win an Oscar, of course, not all of them will win. Only one of them will win, but several of them will be nominated. Out of all the actors or all the films of the year, they'll pick maybe 5 or 6 that were really good. They'll nominate those. They'll be the nominees. That would be the noun version. And then they will pick one, which of course will be the winner. So his movie Sunny didn't win the award, but it was among the select few, the very special few, that could have won the Grand Special Prize at this film festival in France. So that's a pretty good vote of support, I guess, for his work as a director.
I would agree, but that's kind of unusual, an American film festival in France. But we're going to find out some more about Nicolas Cage here in the final paragraph. Let's wrap things up and listen to it first.
All in all, Nicolas Cage is a true original, a Hollywood star whose personality and passion have made him a household name. Whether he's playing himself or inspiring silly memes, he's always pushing the envelope and doing things his own way. And really, isn't that what makes him so entertaining?
第3部分我们看到片语 all in all 指的是总而言之或是总的来说。例如 The rooms were clean and the breakfast was delicious. All in all, the hotel was very nice. 房间都很干净，早餐也很美味。总而言之，这家饭店很棒。接着来介绍一个片语 push the envelope， 它的意思是突破界限或是挑战极限。举例来说 Race car drivers often push the envelope to win. 赛车手为求胜利，常常挑战极限。或是 The company pushes the envelope in automotive design. 那些公司在汽车设计方面挑战极限。最后来介绍它的同义片语 push the boundaries. Boundaries, B-O-U-N-D-A-R-I-E-S, push the boundaries. 例如 The artist's work continues to push the boundaries of what is considered acceptable. 这位艺术家的作品持续挑战人们认为可接受范围的极限。最后一个例子 The people in the biology department are pushing the boundaries of science every day. 生物部门的人每天都在挑战科学的极限。
Okay, so all in all, okay, that's when we kind of wrap things up. Taken all together, Nicolas Cage is a true original, a Hollywood star whose personality and passion have made him a household name. So he's a true original, which means he's unique. There's nobody else like him. There's nobody else who has that kind of bony face that he has, or that sort of oddly shaped nose, or that kind of nasal-sounding voice. Yeah, nobody is like him at all. He's a true original. And, of course, he's a household name, which means everybody knows all about him because he's been around for oh so long and he's done oh so many things.
Absolutely. Even if you haven't seen any of his films, you would probably know Nicolas Cage as that Hollywood actor. That's why we would describe him as a household name. Whether he's playing himself or inspiring silly memes, he's always pushing the envelope and doing things his own way. Yes, absolutely. Whether he's playing himself or sort of an exaggerated version of himself, like he does in the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, or if he's inspiring silly memes, like some of his very dramatic scenes or the dramatic faces he makes when he's acting. Of course, those can become memes, inspire silly memes, get people to laugh and to share online, that type of thing. So no matter what he's doing, is we're basically saying here, he's always pushing the envelope and doing things his own way. Pushing the envelope is basically a term that comes to us from engineering. When you take a machine and you test it to the breaking point, you're kind of pushing the envelope, or envelope, you could say it that way. I think it comes from the world of test pilots, when they would fly a plane as fast as possible and then try to fly it even faster, fly it as high as possible, and then try to go a little bit higher to the point where the plane might break and crash. They would describe that as pushing the envelope, kind of going to the very extreme ends or the very extreme limits of something. So that's what he's done both in his acting life, in his professional life, and in many ways in his personal life. We didn't even talk about the fact he was married to Elvis's daughter. Another interesting thing about him. So he's always doing things his own way. Absolutely. And really, isn't that what makes him so entertaining? Absolutely. Even if you're not the biggest fan of his movies, you definitely have to say that Nicolas Cage isn't a boring guy. And even seeing him on a television talk show, just chatting about his life, would probably be very entertaining. It would probably give you a good time, give you some laughs, give you some excitement. It would definitely not leave you bored or anything like that, because he's an interesting guy. And, you know, of course, interesting things are entertaining. They give us pleasure and enjoyment to watch them and to experience them.
Right. If something's entertaining, of course, it amuses us. It makes us happy. Of course, we go see movies to be entertained. That's the verb, entertain. Entertainment is the noun form. Of course, Hollywood is all about entertainment, making movies for people to enjoy and be entertained by. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now to listen to Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到 To avoid going bankrupt, Cage began starring in a string of low-quality action movies. 为了避免破产，尼可拉斯凯吉开始主演一系列低品质的动作片。那我们先来看到 string 这个字当名词，它有线、细绳或是一串的意思。 那么 a string of 它可以表达一系列的什么或是一连串的什么，像如果我们说 a string of successful singles 就可以表达一连串的成功单曲。好，那么另外则是要介绍 go 加上形容词的用法。 go 当连缀动词呢，就带有变得、变成怎么样怎么样的语义，那么后面接形容词来描述它的变化。像课文里面它是用 go bankrupt 来表达破产，那其他还有像 go bad 可以描述食物它变质坏掉，还有 go stale 可以描述食物面包等等它是变得不新鲜的，那么也可以描述说婚姻交往关系啊，它变得平淡无奇、了无新意的意思。还有 go wrong 则是表达事情出错、发生问题等等。那我们接着读到课文第3部分的第一句，它是用到 a Hollywood star whose personality and passion have made him a household name 来描述尼可拉斯凯吉。那这边它用到 whose 引导关系子句的限定用法，那我们来学习这样的用法。whose 当所有格关系代名词后面要接名词，那就可以用来表达先行词的什么什么东西这样子。好，那么当先行词是非特定不明确的对象时，那要使用限定用法。whose 引导的关系子句就是要限定先行词的范围，那这时候 whose 的前面不加逗号。举例来说， The man whose car was stolen was furious 那名车子被偷的男子暴怒，他非常生气。我们现在先不管关系子句的话，那只看到 the man was furious 那名男子暴怒，可是我们不知道是哪一名男子，这时候 the man 是不明确的对象，所以后面我们接了关系子句whose car was stolen 来限定它的范围，所以 the man whose car was stolen 就是说那名车子被偷的男子。好，像这样用法就是限定用法，这时候 whose 的前面不加逗号。好，那我们回头来看看课文的句子， whose 的前方它的先行词是 a Hollywood star 是一位好莱坞巨星，那这是非特定不明确的对象，后面接关系子句whose personality and passion 点点点点点，要去限定范围，形容他是一位性格和热情使他家喻户晓的好莱坞巨星。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Bankrupt. If the country were to go bankrupt, we would live a terrible life. Frustration. Tyler's lack of career progress was a source of great frustration for him. Unbearable.Not until the pain in his finger became unbearable did Sam go see a doctor. Massive. The new shopping mall has a massive number of clothing stores. Fictional. The author's recent work is a fictional story set in a troubled future. Version. I need to download the latest version of the software. Nominate. Pearl was just nominated for the Employee of the Month award. Entertaining.While this week's show wasn't as good as last week's, it was still entertaining.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It's time now for our discussion starter for today. And the question is, which film starring or produced by Nicolas Cage would you most like to see and why?
I think for me it's a pretty easy answer. I'd most like to see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, since I don't know much about this film, but it sounds very, very interesting. I'd like to see, what's the story? How does Nicolas Cage sort of play an exaggerated version of himself? And also to know that he was the producer of the film, because the producer often helps to choose the other cast members. They often help to sort of guide the look and the feel of the film. So that would be kind of an interesting way to get inside Nick Cage's mind a little bit, as frightening a place as that might be depending on the moment. But I think that sounds like a really interesting film, and it could be funny, it could be kind of dramatic or sad, or I really don't know what to expect. So it sounds like a great movie to watch, because I really haven't seen any of his movies in the last 5 or 10 years, and I think that would be a good place to start to catch up with Nick Cage.
Me too. I think I'd like to see the one Sunny, because that was nominated for an award in a film festival people.
director,
France.
yeah.
Yeah, so that would probably be a good film if the French people like it. They love their films and they know a lot of things about film. So yes, indeed, that'd be kind of cool. But also when talking about this particular topic, I'd like to go back and watch Rumblefish again. He had a small role in that movie, but that was actually a very well-made film. It's in black and white.
That's right.
But indeed, there are lots of films by Nicolas Cage that you should check out.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.